Hey folks, it's Angel and welcome back to my channel. Today we're looking at the Virtualcol Beach 99. Now yes, I know what you're going to say. Oh, but it's the Virtualcol. And yeah, you'd be partially right, but guess what? The modern engine of FS 2020 does actually a lot of things to improve the quality of some of these, what are commonly referred to as lower end models for the sim. Now looking at the outside here, this doesn't look terrible at all. The Beach 99 of course is a twin turboprop, small airliner feeder aircraft. It's something that's really not been done by anybody else for the sim or for previous sims. Virtualcol is the only people that made it. In fact, they've been a company that's made a number of aircraft that no one else has touched. Now, am I expecting this to be a Coronado level or PMDG A2A? No, I'm not even expecting this to be anything like most of the others. This costs $16. There's a link, of course, if you want to find it on the description for the video. But it doesn't look terrible, does it? It looks alright from the outside. The PBR materials don't look terrible. They actually make up for a lot. You don't require as much texture art detail in a model when the sim and the actual game engine can actually take care of that. So let's take a look. Now again, some things here are pretty rough, like these up here, and yeah, the textures could be do with a lot more work. They are simple, but it's not terrible. I mean, compared to their FSX stuff and FS 2004 stuff, this isn't awful. I have seen far worse. Now, people say, oh, well, it's only worth to be freeware. Yeah, but when it's the only people that make it, it's kind of their captive market. The real question is it worth it? Does it fly okay? They've had some issues with their flight models in the past, and with 2020 proving difficult for some even veteran developers, yeah, it could be troublesome. Now, complexity-wise, not got a lot of add-on features. It does come in the manual with some operational speeds and things. Now, they do say it doesn't handle exactly like the real thing, which is a fair disclaimer. Of course, you've got your click-away yokes, which is about the only real extra feature in this aircraft. But we're going to take a look at how this operates, because I figure, you know what, if you really want to fly a retro feeder airliner, or at least semi-retro, why not give it a crack, right? Okay, so let's get myself set for this one. Throttle is idle, mix is out, battery on. Let's go down here, take a quick look. Beacon on for engine start. External power is non-operational. So we've got our engine generators there. Ignition and starters, auto feather. So parking brake is out. Real simple procedure for this one because it's really not following a lot of complex procedures. If you're looking for study level, this isn't that. Let's go. Put the fuel in. If you're looking for an aircraft you can just pick up and fly with some real simple operations, this is that. It does have icing effects. It does most things people would want. And like I said, the PBR materials, they make up for a lot of inadequacies in complexity of texture. It turns it from something that's probably not great in FSX at all, barely maybe worth the money, to something that's not awful. I've seen well worse than this be considered payware for FSX. So that's engine 1. Start engine 2. Engine 2 should start up now. Nice and simple. Now, I'm not trying to basically make a pitch for you to buy this. It's your own choice. This is why I'm reviewing it. Now, I'm going to see how it operates in terms of its feeling, because that's always been a thing that's been quite interesting with the Virtualcol aircraft. I remember having quite a few of them, just because they made stuff that didn't exist. The Shorts 330 before Coronado did one, and a couple of the other aircraft they had. No one did them, and it was an option. So the avionics came on before I even actually had the battery on and things, so that was interesting. Right, so auto feather on. Alternators on, even though I already set that on my selector. Interesting. Okay. So we are operational. Okay, let's taxi her out. So parking brake is over here. So with it being a turboprop, it will creep a little bit. I'm keeping my props down a little bit lower. We'll keep this at idle. Performance is decent. It's not terrible. Could be better, but not terrible. There is an element of I'm also uploading a video right now to my other channel. So there's a bit of impact from the net side, which does affect flight sim, but not a huge amount. Aircraft's ground handling is placid, responsive, decent. They've managed to up the actual nose wheel steering angle, I think, more than the rudder actual application does, because normally I've found a lot of aircraft are very stiff on the ground because of how low you have to have your rudder sensitivity for 2020. So let's just stop here. Do it a notch of flaps. A little bit of throttle here. Take ourselves to the runway and line up. There we go. Now the GPS will work, but you will have to program it from the... You can obviously only change the radio frequencies on that, which is fine. You'll have to program it from your flight planner, per se, because it's not a full actual recreation of an actual real GPS system. More of just a visual representation of what's going on. And it can actually show you where your flight plan is. Alright, let's get this bad boy lined up. I've always loved the Beach 99 because it's a very unique looking, kind of smaller airliner. Okay. Let's go. Full power applied. Aircraft starts to accelerate. We'll see what happens here. What are the views like? Okay, so some developers, even more expensive, better quality developers, haven't put in decent actual camera views. This one's useful for the kind of landing approach look. Oh, hello. And you've got an instrument view. Lift off. I was looking at the views more than I was actually taking off. Let's give it some trim. Okay, gear up. Flaps up. It's interestingly wanting to try and think it's stalling a little bit early, even though we'd come off the runway with a lot of power. Quite slow to accelerate. Seems like the engine power is a little bit lower than it probably should be here. Just keeping myself coming out at a reasonable angle. Airspeed slowly building up, probably slower than I'd expect from twin PT6s. We're kind of just hanging at altitude here. Barely actually climbing with a very high angle of nose, so climb performance is kind of crappy. I didn't really notice much change in the engine tone when we accelerated, so the sounds aren't phenomenal. Looking down at my throttles, all the instruments are full forward, so that's interesting. I'm wondering if auto feather's doing anything stupid to the aircraft. Let's turn that off for a second. So we're just hanging around here. We're gaining a bit more climb power now and speed, so slow to get off the runway and slow to climb. In terms of actual handling, and the prop discs look terrible, I'll give it that. They do not look good at all. But flight handling isn't bad. You could fix those prop discs by swapping them out with another one from another aircraft. It works exactly the same as FSX. Or changing the alpha values. But you could change that easily and have nicer looking prop discs. I think they literally just use the same ones they had from their existing model. And based on the textures, I think that's also very similar. It's a port, it's conversion. They flip materials to be 2020 compatible. And I will say, look at the shadowing, look at the lighting effects we're getting from 2020. It does improve things dramatically. You could say, in a way, it polishes a turd. It's a horrible thing to say, but it does work. So I'm going to throttle back here. We're going to circle back over the lake and bring her back in for a landing. See how it performs in that regard. So once it starts to pick up speed, it really starts to pick up speed. I've gained a bit of altitude here, more than I expected. Let's go back to flight idle. The handling is lovely. I will give it that. The actual in-flight handling after the slow departure, maybe AUKUS is a little bit short for this aircraft. I'm not sure. I'd have to go look that up. But overall, what are we bleating about? So if you're looking for full systems complexity, it's not even that. It's probably less than the default aircraft, but if you are a desperate fan of the Beach 99, it's not terrible. It is not terrible. Now, loss of speed is something I've noticed a bit of a problem sometimes with Virtualcol aircraft. They tend to suck when it comes to deceleration. And I've noticed that even though I'm at idle, I'm not really getting any change in my speed. I'm even pulling back on the prop pitch to get a coarser blade. Only really now starting to think about decelerating. So she definitely is very slippery, doesn't lose speed very quickly at all. Those discs are awful. I can't stand that. Look at that. Oh, I'd have to swap those out. I might be happy if they actually swapped out. And the exterior sounds are definitely a bit strange. Okay, airport's down there, so we'll do a loop round here. We'll come in for a straight approach. Weird tear in the glass there. Looks like a crack, that's unfortunate. And very pixelated smudges there. Kind of low res. Could be improved. If I was obsessed with the Beach 99, I'd probably go in and mess with the resolution of that stuff, change it out for something else myself, or one of the things from my own library of glass textures. But I don't think I could be bothered, really. Not that into the aircraft type. So the loss of speed is definitely something I'm noticing that's not really happening with the aircraft clean. Like, the engine's RPM really isn't changing. Other than a little bit. The torque's going down, but the RPM's staying high. Okay. Now, I'm going to drop gear here to see if it will help me kind of lose some speed for my approach. I'm going to give it a little bit of rudder here and just circle back around. As the aircraft is starting to lose speed now. Would I buy this again? Maybe not this aircraft, but I've always kind of had a little soft spot for it. It's not a bad aircraft. I like the smaller kind of commuter airliners. So if someone comes out with a 1900C or D, I'd be very happy, especially if that was you, Coronado. And maybe a 99, maybe something similar. It depends. But this one isn't phenomenal. Something I might have put up with as a freeware or a cheap payware in FSX. A lot harder to put up with in 2020, considering everything else looks so gorgeous. It's not bad. That's a mistake there, where they've managed to do the normal mapping on the engine and they've not actually gone through and checked that the panel lines they created were lined up. That's awkward. Or they're off by a pixel. So we're coming in on the runway now, and speed. Okay, we'll gear down. We've got first notch of flaps, so we're not losing any speed. So I'm going to pull the prop pitch right back here to get any sort of deceleration. Almost cutting the fuel here. Really poor at deceleration. I should be dumping speed here. Let's give it another notch of flaps. See if we can actually use them to kind of brake the aircraft a little bit. Those prop discs are insanely irritating to my eye. Okay. We're lined up here. Yes, I'm well aware, thank you. Also, I noticed that I get the master warnings, but nothing's showing up on the actual panel here. That's a awkward moment. Okay, so we're lined up on for final. Kind of feel like I need to cut the engines here to lose any more speed. We're coming in at 120 knots, and I don't think it wants to decelerate. You know what? I'm going to cut the engines, which I already have done, and they're still turning. This is awkward. I've cut the fuel, and we're still going. Yeah, this would require a 10-mile final. This is a botched approach, because this thing will not slow down. Interesting. Please slow down. Beta, will it at least give me that? Now, I'm not sure if this is this aircraft in particular, or if this is an FS 2020 thing, because I know the turboprops in FSX would have the beta range almost at flight idle, so you'd drop into that notch of loss of power. In 2020, it seems they moved that back, so that you're almost at throttle when you're not at throttle. So idle is still an amount of throttle, and that beta range drop is just behind 0, essentially, on idle. So, this has the same feeling that I get with the Caravan, the default Caravan in the game, where when you come back to flight idle on the power, you don't get that lurch. You still feel like you've actually got a bit of power going on, and the aircraft hasn't really dropped into idle yet. I noticed with this, I really get no deceleration, no loss of speed when the engines power back. It feels overpowered, but underpowered at the same time. So the flight model handles nicely, but the loss of speed is bad. Gaining speed is bad. It feels like it's really draggy, then slippery. The engines are underpowered, but always somehow running. And even though I had cut my fuel, pulled my prop pitch to idle, my engine to full idle, I still had engines running and going on the full approach until I stopped the aircraft. So that's when they died. I want to like this. I do. Because it... How are they still running? They're already shut down inside the cockpit. Go figure. I want to like it. I do. But I don't think I can. It doesn't have enough features to make up for it being kind of shoddy in the flight model department. If it had things like opening doors in cargo bays, visual extras, maybe it'd make up for the lack of... No, not really. Unfortunately, not a fan. Well, it was a quick, I guess, first project by them for 2020, but if it's going to continue like this, like it did with FSX and P3D, they may stay on the, oh cool, list, rather than the, I'll buy that. Link is in the description if you want to give it a try, if you want to mess with the flight model, if you want to just try it out for yourselves, there is a link. For me, this one will be a no. Thanks for watching, folks. Bye.